Okay, we are back to Never Off Duty. Very happy to have Domenic Paniccia, Assistant Chief of Patrol for the Clay County Sheriff's Office, back with us. Happy to have him back because let me tell you, you guys and gals love to tune in anytime I tag fishing on the show. It's the viewership just quadruples overnight. So we got to make sure Sheriff Cook is on one of the fishing shows. Or you know what we should do is take her fishing. Or I don't know. Does she fish? You know?
I think she does fish, actually.
So I think she does. I'm doing the cosmic motion to move closer to the mic, so I don't have to edit it louder.
Yeah, I think she does fish. She's big into boating.
Okay, yeah, she is big into boating. I know that because she's whenever that's one of their free time. I always am like, she's like, I'm off. I'm going to go boating. So
I don't know how she has any free time. But,
I don't either. No, she doesn't often.
No, she doesn't. I told her it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's the whole name of the show, Never Off Duty, because y'all aren't. Even when you're on your boat, you still
it's still hard to disconnect.
Are you able to turn it off when you're? I mean, because you're you're assistant. You're extremely important.
Yeah.
But but you've got great people under you too. So
I do. I'm able to do it. Here's how I do it. So, as we mentioned the last time, first off, thanks for having me back.
Oh, absolutely.
I had a blast the last time.
Good.
I really did. So thanks for having me back. But I'm able to turn it off like every other week.
Okay.
So I'm on call every other week. So even when I'm off, I got that phone constantly attached to the hip, and it may go off for some type of major event. But the weeks that my counterpart, Assistant Chief Clark, is covering, I'm able to somewhat turn it off. And especially on the boat or the kayak, I actually can leave the phone home.
Oh, that is...
And that is very rare. Now, if I'm just on my off week and out at a restaurant or around, obviously I have my phone with me. But those times that I just truly want to disconnect, thank goodness I'm able to leave that phone home and, get that 5-6 hours where.
Yeah, that is.
But the funny thing in reality, Judson, is they got my personal number also.
True.
So if they really need me, they're going to get me. And sometimes I joke on video, there'll be a helicopter coming over the intercoastal or a plane. I'm like, they're tracking me down. They need me back. Not that I'm not that important, but I joke about it. So
it feels like that though. And I think that's the any job where you're on call, even when you're not supposed to be on call, you are, there's always a chance. It's that stress level builds up. I tell my wife, I'm always pushing for vacations where like we're out in the middle of the sea, like a cruise, something where it's extremely hard to justify leaving the phone on. And luckily, but even then, people will still try to email you. And even the worst are the ones that know.
Right.
And they're still like, I
think like I'm going on a cruise, thank goodness, in September. And I don't even think I'm going to pay for the Wi-Fi because I don't want the phone to work. I really don't. I'm sure you have. Have you ever heard of the studies of like law enforcement officers and firefighters when when they're getting ready for their shift and they've done the test on their body, and it's almost like they go into that work mode and blood pressure rises and stress levels rise, and it's almost like the second you put that gear on, it's all elevated.
I imagine. And it's hard. I have heard of that. Yes,
it's hard to come down from that.
Yes,
and that's why I stress. We talked about it before. I stress to the young guys and the people getting into this that you can really get, ate up, so to speak, with this job and this lifestyle, and you got to have that out. You got to have that break. You really do.
I think that's something. Again, I like to pitch this to anybody. If you get a chance to do the day with deputy or day as a deputy, go do it. The one thing that kind of shocked me the most from the civilians going through it were the ones going. The training team did great. Mm-hmm. They were you? I don't know if you were.
No,
there.
I was not there.
So they were stressing. They're like, "Hey, listen, you might not believe us, but you're going to probably be stressed when the training exercise is over." And a lot of them kind of just were like, whatever. And sure enough, afterwards, like there are people just shaking post stress, and it wasn't because they were scared. It was just adrenaline drop. Yeah. Yep. And I can imagine that it's suiting up every day. That you don't know what's going to go on, and that stress is tough. That's why, again, it's so nice to have I just said again twice. Well, it's one of those days. I had a late night working last night. No, but having that relief. And last time you were on, I said hobby, and we talked about fishing is not really a hobby. it's something you love. It's more than that.
Yeah, it is for me. For some people, it's a hobby, but
Right.
for me, it's a weekly thing. So it's more than that.
But I kept calling it a hobby after
Yeah,
that, so I
that's
apologize. I re-listened to the episode, so I try not to ask stuff. Although we had a great to recap, we talked about because you're assistant chief of patrol, Northern Clay County.
Correct.
We talked about the operation.
Gateway to Clay.
Gateway to Clay. Thank you. I knew it had Clay in there, which is basically just kind of making that area more better for. I'm going to use great English today.
More better
for businesses and the people that live there.
It's exactly right.
So
yeah,
and it's been very successful. So it's very exciting. The Wells Road corridor is very.
We talked about that yesterday. There's like 6 new businesses coming into the Wells Road corridor, and it's great. I mean, you got the new motorcycle place took over the Sears Auto Center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's a big spot.
That is a big spot.
Red dirt motorcycles. You got a couple, probably 3 new restaurants coming in. I gave a shout out to a new coffee shop there called The Lab.
Oh.
This just read about it. The owner of that company, when she's not doing her thing, is actually taking veterans and training them on resume building and interview skills and job placement.
Oh, wow.
Pretty amazing stuff.
That's pretty cool.
So good stuff on Wells Road happening.
Yeah.
We still got work to do, obviously, but it's improving.
That's pretty cool. This is to our listeners that have tuned in week after week. Appreciate it. This is the first time we've done a one-on-one, and we have no supervision today.
I do have supervision. She's out there somewhere.
So no, I'm just kidding. So
I know.
It's just funny because we usually but you've done community policing too, if I remember correctly.
I did. I was in community. Well, we all do it almost every day, but technically assigned to community policing. Probably we're going back. We're going back to 2002.
But I mean, I feel like when you have that background, you've got plus you're an assistant chief, so you've clearly got the background of knowing like. Okay, there are some things that operationally which you can't talk about, whereas somebody newer might go, oh yeah, let me talk about this. And then you're like, so.
Yeah.
But that's what I was joking about, not having the supervision to.
Yeah, I get it.
Actually, to be completely fair to everybody on the Clay County Sheriff's Office, nothing has been off limits. I want the listeners to understand that. We've, other than maybe an ongoing investigation where we kind of skirted the issue, or if something's going to go to court, whatever, that we've kind of glossed. But the hard questions that you have sent to sheriff at claysheriff.com, hopefully, that we haven't shied away from. We've got a list that we're going to go through one episode, but they're there. And now back to this interview. Okay, so Northern Clay is going pretty good.
It's going pretty good. Of course, just like anywhere, any community, you're going to have an incident here and there. And then we fight a lot of perception. We talked about that before.
Right.
In the north end of the county is a lot of perception issues. And that's, once again, that's what Gateway to Clay is about. It's about improving that aesthetics, the way it looks, and working with the businesses and improving some of their stuff, property owners, doing our part with the crime stuff, and then, making it a place people want to live, they want to work, they want to shop, and it's doing good.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to give you a choice because we're going to free flow this today.
Let's do it.
All right, so we can either, or we'll probably do both anyways. I walked in today and we were talking about optics for firearms, and I was pointed out that you, because I'm changing the batteries on mine, I do it yearly. That's what you're supposed to do. And is the whole department now? I was going to give you a choice, and now I'm just going down this path anyways.
That's fine.
Is the whole department switched to this? Is it?
We are. The whole department is switching to optics on the pistols.
I think that is wonderful.
It is.
I was not younger in my life. I'm 46, so but take that what it is. But when I got my concealed carry at 21.
Right.
I used to not. One, they were incredibly expensive back then, and they still
are.
Still are.
Yeah.
But I just finally decided to try it out, and I'm like, wow, I'm not. It's not. I am a better shooter, but But the more important thing is I'm a faster, more accurate shooter.
Yeah, it's incredible. We it's a process. I'll tell you that. for each person, I don't have the exact numbers, but just to be able to carry that on your firearm, you have to shoot in excess of 1,000 rounds.
Right.
And mainly, and a shout out to our training department. I went out there. I'm 52 years old. I went out there with my chief on Monday. We reported at 8 a.m. with a lot of the young bucks, and they put us through some training. I'm telling you, I went home Monday night and I was beat up, and we had to go Tuesday afternoon and go till 10 at night to get the nighttime portion of that. And a lot of that was just getting used to, like you said, 25 years of me using front sight post, and then the Marine Corps prior to that, front sight post, sight picture, and changing that whole way of, finding that dot on that optic and just starting to train. And then once you get it, you use one. Once you get it, you're like, wow. And then it was the shooting portion and getting accurate with it. And then once you get dialed in, I mean, just amazing. Amazing.
And it's obviously y'all carry open, but for concealed carriers, that was one of my bigger concerns. But I don't even notice a difference. It's a little bit. I've got not a little bit of gut. I got a gut, and it sticks in there in an appendix carry, and that is annoying. But you rapidly get used to it. It's not and it encouraged me to lose some weight. So
yeah, it's funny that once I left there Tuesday night, like qualified and able to carry it, I immediately went and had to get a off-duty carry holster. And I would normally carry a smaller sidearm off-duty, but I'm like, no, I got to carry this optic because it's so cool. Now, some things that are weird to me, because I'm a little OCD with things, it's like, they're like, don't turn it off. And I'm like, what? Don't just leave this thing on? That kind of bothered me. And they're like, yeah, leave it on. The battery's going to last probably a year or more. It's
like 50,000. Usually most of them are 50,000 hours. So well, I don't know the math, but what that works out to in a year. But that is what I've always heard is if you just pick a day every year, change it, you're probably going to be fine. Because you never know if you got a slower battery.
Right. And it depends, of course, on the brightness setting and stuff like that. But what we're going to do is they're just going to change the batteries yearly when we qualify. And then we'll have batteries in the lieutenant's office and stuff in those cases where it does go out and someone needs a battery replacement. But I think overall, when the whole agency gets through it, it's going to be a process. Now, one of the things that's really going to help that is the new range that's coming to Clay. So
that's awesome.
Once we get everyone through this process, because it's so many rounds you do have to use to carry it, I just think it's just going to be better for everybody.
And really for those of you listening that are not into firearms and don't understand, if the battery goes out, the gun's still perfectly operational.
Sure.
I didn't look, but I'm assuming y'all still have your iron sights on there, so
they put the extended sights on there. So if the optic goes out, you're still good.
And that's mine are co-sighted with my iron sight, so it makes each one's differently. I have a cool one that the one that I switched to or process of switching to is because I just ordered it, finally came in for my carry. Is it's got a solar on the top, so even if it goes out and it's daylight, it still has enough to pick up some sort of image. But I mean, was it worth the extra price tag of that? No, because I change the batteries every year. But I like it.
Hey, I like my gadgets too. I like my toys, and we all have those things we buy we probably don't need, but we want.
And do y'all, is it issued Glocks? I'm assuming because that seems to be what most.
Well, our sidearm is a Glock. We transitioned when Sheriff Cook came in. I was actually a part of that project too. We transitioned from the 45 caliber to the 9mm. Many reasons for that. Obviously, the 45 was a beast, so to speak, and you'd rather a smaller caliber, but you're hitting what you're shooting at, obviously. So the 9mm was a good transition. We gained more rounds as well, 17 round magazines, and then the optics were Trijicon. Mm-hmm. We went with the SRO Trijicon.
Okay, the great optic.
And I think it's a great thing. And I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but we are going to go to optics eventually on all the rifles as well.
Okay. I think that's just to me, it's when I do the same thing so it's kind of cool, the 1,000 rounds. I mean, that's kind of like the standard. You get a new gun, everybody says, if you don't know what you're doing, take a class. This is my suggestion, and it'll make you feel better. It'll make you a better shooter if you're really out of there. But I always, whenever I buy a new firearm, I buy 1,000 rounds of ammunition and I shoot through it because now I have guns that I haven't
Right.
because they're display,
Yeah.
not display guns, gun I won at a whatever. And I don't really ever plan to shoot them. So, but the one
You're going to carry and use, and, be proficient in. I get it.
And you do know right now somebody is writing up an email like, "You're not a real gunman if you don't shoot. You should, every gun you own, you should shoot." Again, I'm talking about like I'm at an event. I won a raffle. I would have never got that gun. It's gold. I've got one up there. It's gold plated. It kicks like a beast.
Yeah,
I've shot it once, and that'll be
enough. Yeah,
because I don't want to.
I'm one of them. I've never been like a big gun guy, and I'm a Marine,
right.
Cop for 26 years, and I'm just I have what I need. If I'm hunting or working, obviously, but I've never been one of the gun guys. So for me to shoot 1,000 rounds was a good time.
I enjoy going out and shooting 100 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it starts to become work after that.
Exactly.
So usually I'll break up the 1,000 rounds into like a few things. So that's pretty cool. The other question I was going to ask you last time you were on that we didn't get into is patrol. Mm-hmm. So you're chief of patrol, and so in your career, there's two things I want to do. This one, I want to talk about your career and like the things that you're allowed to talk about that stick out. Like, wow, like this was weird. Whatever. Because patrol, you like you said, you see everything.
You do.
And the other thing I want to talk about is, let's just go into that first. Let's go.
Okay.
I'll tell you, so you can be thinking about it in the back of your head. The other thing I want to talk about is, what do you think the civilian needs to know about patrol that might make their life easier? Like, what are Deputy Ford is like, please, if I'm just get out of my way. Like if like if I'm coming up fast, my lights might not be on yet, but I don't, I'm going a little, just in general.
We'll
he's like, even when I'm civilian, I'm like, please don't drive in the left hand lane. Just get out of. That's the passing lane.
Yeah,
so
we'll talk on some of them.
Yeah.
What can we tell them? Like some insider tips.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have talked a few times, but I think you're better suited to talk about this. The things that if you, let me be politically incorrect here, like if you as a citizen weren't being such a jerk, it might have turned out better.
Yeah, we can talk about all that. Interactions, like when they're wondering, what are they doing? What are those cops doing? And why we do certain things and things that'll help you. And we can, because I think this can be pretty funny.
Yeah, actually. I think I know from my dad. Well, all right, let's talk about your stories first. We'll go through some stories and then we'll go into that.
What kind of stories?
What sticks out to you the most? I'm trying to remember. I think you told us one last time, but now I can't remember what it is. So if we repeat, they probably don't remember either.
No, it's patrol. Going back to patrol, like I said before, the exposure you have, just the never knowing what you're going to get. And it could be a barking dog, and then the next thing is the worst moment of your life, or, the worst moment of someone else's life. There's comedy in the job, but it's a serious job. I'm not going to take away from that. In my career, I'm sad to say I've been involved in 5 law enforcement deaths, so that's a serious part of this job as well. But the fun. I'm a guy, everyone that knows me, I have a very serious side, but I like to have a good time out there too. So when I trained some of these guys, we had a blast, but when it was time to get down to work, we did. But in patrol, I've seen it all. Your animal calls are always your funniest calls. We talked about that.
Now, did I ask you the drug question about animal calls? Or
I don't think you did.
So in movies,
right.
The drug dealers hide.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. Remember we buried? I told you.
That's right. Okay. So
we talked about.
So this is a tease. If you didn't hear that, just jump back. It's in the list. You can find that episode. Listen to that. It's a great episode.
Yeah, it is. It was a good episode.
The tease is about people use animals to hide stuff, and every person who's ever worked narcotics, which you did, has said that they have never found anything in a snake pen yet.
I've never found a snake pen. The dog thing, yes. Now, when I really started my law enforcement career, and I'm going back to 97, I started at the Florida Department of Agriculture, Consumer Services. So, you're young and aggressive, fresh out of the Marine Corps, and they put me up there on I-95 at the Florida-Georgia line. This is an animal story. And I was way too aggressive for them. They were old timers. They really were. They were usually, it was consisted of 30-year retired JSO guys that went to work for the state for a few more years, and they put me on I-95 doing enforcement. So one time we did pull over a truck coming out of South Florida, and it bypassed the inspections, so we knew we had something. We pull up there, and people don't know this, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services has more, we'll say, search and seizure rights than pretty much anyone. They can go in any type of commercial vehicle that's capable of carrying a consumer product or agriculture product without a search warrant.
Oh, wow.
They can inspect it. So pull the guy over, me and another guy, and we're like, what's in the back? And he doesn't speak any English, so we're like, you need to open it up, and he's not compliant, so bolt cutters, straight out, boom, and roll the back of this door open. And we roll the door about 3 feet. A pit bull on a chain
At least it was on chain.
is tied to the back and lunges, and it's basically guarding whatever is in there.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, watching
I'm an animal lover, so it turned into, and man, I'm going back, this is 26 years ago, but I remember that turned into Nassau County assisting us and Animal Control Services, and it ended up being a shipment of some narcotics that were in the front of that truck that you had to weave your way through, boxes of miscellaneous stuff to get to, but an animal guarding it in the back.
And you know what I don't understand? This is me, other than criminals if they were smarter, they probably would be making millions doing a real, find a profitable path.
Oh, absolutely.
Other than that, I've never understood that. Like, it's like, you bypass the thing, red flag.
Right.
You've got a pit bull guarding it, red flag.
Yeah, it works smarter.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to get stopped, so plan for that. In your, I don't want to give tips to criminals, but
yeah, this poor guy probably didn't know what was going on anyway.
And I do know that, again, movies, that a lot of times drivers aren't told anything. Right. They have no idea. They're just doing a job, and they might not.
But that's an animal story. I mean, it's. I remember I worked there for about 6-7 months. I got into like 4 or 5 incidents. Lieutenant came to me. He's like, "Man, you got to get out of here." I said, "I'm trying." And then Clay County called me in '98, and I was gone. So it was. I think they were happy and sad at the same time.
Oh wow! It's what gets me is I was thinking of this the other day, and you can tell me from your perspective if probably shouldn't. So be prepared to pass on this. Criminals, they tend to wear they look like, I hate to say it, but you can drive down the road and you're kind of like, this person might be up to something. They're trying too hard to kind of like hide or.
You're talking about the wave, the guilty wave.
Yeah. That's a good. I know now. I know exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't profile. Do we go to what we consider like a high narcotics area and see what we consider based on our experience and training something that might be suspicious? Absolutely. Do you have what we joke about, the guilty wave, when you're passing someone and they give you that over friendly wave like, hey,
okay, I haven't stopped doing that because I do that when I see on the I'll be like, hey.
No, you'd have to see it. You got to know
I know what you're talking about.
You got to know what I'm talking about. And it's,
I've driven through a bad area of town and have.
Yeah. But once again, that doesn't give us the right to stop.
No.
Everyone looks different. Everyone, sometimes I hate to be that guy where you just stereotype somebody and you could be totally wrong. But you know what? We're pretty good at what we do, and a lot of times we're not.
Right.
But if you're, like I said, and let's say you're in a high narcotics traffic area and you see something that just doesn't seem right to you, then just like any other job, you have to wait and you have to develop probable cause for a lawful traffic stop. And then you know what? Then you can put those little tips and things to test and say, you know what, I was absolutely right. Or I wasn't. Learn from it.
Well, it's just, and here's what I was thinking. I there was a person and they were, in a good neighborhood wearing a hoodie and and you're already like, okay. And then they're like, kind of like going from tree to, and so you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
But then I was like, the smarter criminal would just put on like a neon bright
Yeah.
Because
Jogging suit or something?
or no, the worker shirt. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking that the other day. Like I'm like the AT&T guys.
You are educating them. You
I
realize
know.
that.
I'm so sorry, I'm Sheriff Cook. Okay, never mind.
This is funny. This is good.
But the good news is they probably don't listen to our podcast. So
That is a fact. I'd bet on that.
But yeah, no, it goes into but it goes to our tip of if you're not, and we'll go do tips next segment, and then we'll also talk fishing for all of you people that tuned in just to hear about fishing. But if you're not doing anything wrong, maybe as a citizen, I'm going to say this: try not to look like you're doing something wrong, as you just draw attention to yourself when you're going through just ask yourself, if I were seeing this, would your spider senses be tingling? And that's a good tip there for, like, if I'm washing my windows on the second floor, I probably shouldn't do it in the middle of the night and with all the lights off. Just, little things like that. It might look like I'm breaking in.
With some people, though, the reality of it is some people do that just to draw us in, to bait us.
That's a good point.
We call it bait us, bait us in. And we talk to the young guys about that, too. I mean, it's sad to say, but you know what? They have a right to do it. And some people are out there just pushing buttons and just pushing the limits. And they're very educated. Some of them are very educated in First Amendment rights. And, they drive around various counties throughout our country, and they're just looking for that officer who they can push the buttons.
Right.
Who doesn't, he's young or she's young, and they don't fully know every law that's out there because there's thousands, and they're waiting for that encounter. And they're wearing something or doing something that's going to draw that encounter, and then that's what they're there for. They're filming the whole thing, and they're trying to catch that young officer or maybe even experienced officer in that kind of situation where they're like, in their mind, I got him. They're going down the path. I know I'm in the right. They're in the wrong.
It's almost like reverse entrapment.
Exactly.
It should also be illegal.
It is. And so we talk about that too. Just, be professional.
Right.
If you don't know, you don't know. You
Right.
know. And we had a recent one, and that officer handled themselves very professional, and they didn't know everything. You know what they did? They said, give me a second. Let me go read up on something. And they came back and they stopped the traffic stop.
Right. And this will probably segue next after the break into some of the tips, because again, I feel like if what the only time I've really ever been pulled over was something stupid like a tail light, a light out or something like that.
Violation.
Or when they changed the speed limit, the week before, and you didn't know it because it's a road you don't use. And it was that, I do remember that within the last 3 years, it was near my church, and somebody's from sheriff's office is there, and they're stopping people, and very great of saying, hey, just so you know, this has changed. Yeah. By the way, you were doing the exact speed limit of what it used to be, so I know.
We always try to do that with any new law or any new county ordinance. We always preach to our people to, let's have an educational period, like when the county several months ago changed the solicitation laws, and the panhandling. And I said, don't go out and hammer these people. Well, let's go out, let's educate them, give them a copy of it, even if they want that. And, give them a chance to comply and find other means of what they need to do before we just start, enforcing.
Right. I think that's, to me, I know it might sound weird to a listener, but if you don't know me, to me, that's got to be the hardest. Not the hardest part of the job. The hardest part of the job is losing somebody and the time away from your family and the stress. Okay. So not even close to the hardest part of the job. But to me, one of the difficult things is you might not agree with a law that you have to enforce. But it's still your job.
Absolutely.
And I think that's got to be tough. That doesn't mean you can't be understanding and, like you said, educate. Like, oh, well, they just changed this. Now we have to educate. And that's where I guess a certain amount of policy comes in on how to handle things.
There's still a lot of discretion in the job, too, which is good. I mean, there are some laws that we try to keep opinion out of it, personal feelings, be professional. State law, and policies and procedures are that. But you got to have some common sense.
Yes.
You got to have some discretion. And you've got to be able to, work through the facts and each side of the story. But discretion is still a good part. I mean, if you were just out there just hammering every person on a traffic violation or let's be honest. Sometimes I speed. I'm not paying attention all the time, and everyone does.
Right.
And, that discretion is a big part. And you know what? It's a big part of that. What's the word? I mean, I don't want to say power, but almost like a deputy that's out there, you really do. You have a right to take someone's freedom away. That's a serious thing. Mm-hmm. And discretion plays into that. You need to think about, what you're doing, what this person's going through, or what caused them to do what they're doing. Now, there's some things you can't just say, no, I'm not going to do that. Domestic violence is a good example of that. I mean, we don't have the right to say, yeah, you know what, you battered your spouse, but we understand why you did that. So we're going to cut you a break tonight. Now, there's none of that. There's some things you just don't do that. But other things you can understand, Right. You're speeding. Well, why are you speeding? Well, you know what, my kid's at school and they're sick and I wasn't paying attention. I'm trying to get this, things like that. Absolutely.
Or my wife's in the back, she's having a baby and now you're going, I'm going to have to deliver a baby.
Or even the dumb ones. You know what? I'm into this tune. I was jamming to this song and I just wasn't paying attention and I'm doing 8 miles over. Okay.
Well, and again, next episode, but I've always believed, especially if it's true, it's better to just be candid and say, I zoned out there. I just feel like you connect. Hey, look, you did it. So
can I tell you one of the best traffic stops?
Yes, please do.
And what the guy said to me, and it was so good that once again that discretion. He probably should have got a ticket, and I just looked at him and just laughed and just said, "Man, you slow down." But I was a deputy. I didn't have any rank at the time, and I was at Highway 17 in our county. You come over the Black Creek Bridge into Fleming Island. I was sitting there facing northbound, so they're coming from Fleming Island towards Green Cove and running radar. And man, I got a good one. I mean, when we say you got a good one, like the one you've been waiting for all night. And it's very rare in patrol you even get to be proactive and run radar. Usually you're going call to call to call. But I had some time, and sure enough, I got a good one, like maybe 25 over.
Oh, wow.
And I made this stupid statement, after my introduction and, I'm so-and-so with the Clay County Sheriff's Office. The reason why I'm stopping you for speeding. Yes. I said, I've been waiting for you all night. I said that statement to him, and the guy said, well, I've been trying as fast as I can to get here to you. And I just looked at him, and I was like, man, that's a good one. I said, listen, I did run him. I made sure he didn't have any warrants, wasn't a wanted felon or something. But after that, I said, buddy, that was a pretty good comeback, and just slow it down.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was good.
That is funny. Again, sometimes my personal lawyer will probably disagree with me on this, but sometimes it's best just to be candid.
Traffic stops are, let's be honest, as an assistant chief or chief, you really don't do a lot of traffic stops. But when I do, I probably do one a week. And when I do, it's usually like something that's just, if I'm stopping you, it's pretty bad.
Pretty bad, yes.
But God, I probably shouldn't say this on air, but if you could video my traffic stops, they're pretty funny. Now, my officer safety's on point, but maybe my official verbiage is not. So what we train in the academy and in-field training is basically I approach your vehicle, in a tactical, safe manner, bladed, a little behind you, greet them, I'll give you an example, like, good morning. Assistant Chief Paniccia with the Clay County Sheriff's Office. How are you doing today? Doing good. Do you know why I stopped you? I was speeding. Yeah, actually, you're speeding. Do you have any lawful reason to be driving that fast today? That's what we train.
Okay, that's actually a good question.
That's good, yeah. And they're usually like, well, no, I don't have a lawful reason. It's kind of that's kind of the way you're trained. But now, being assistant chief, like I said, if I stop you, it's really bad. And if the recruits saw me, they'd be like, what are you doing, chief? I got my hands up. You can't see me because it's a podcast.
It was a school zone and you were in the left-hand lane.
I got my hands up and I'm just looking at them. I'm like, what are you doing? And they kind of just give me the look and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm sorry. I want to. And I'm usually the nice guy. Give them then I tell them who I am and why I stopped them, and then it usually develops into a conversation, and then they're usually given a verbal warning and sent on their way.
Yeah, that's it is. I'll ask this now, and I'll give you a question to think about. My
Okay.
question for you to think about, because we're going to break soon, is because we're like 6 months away from Halloween. Hey,
Yeah.
any spooky calls where you're like, this is just weird? And
Oh yeah.
all right, we'll talk about that, because I think
Oh,
that'd be
yeah.
a cool thing to start
Really good
asking
ones.
people. Because y'all are out there at all hours of the night, and weird stuff
Oh,
happens,
yeah.
even during the day. But sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
weird stuff happens.
Absolutely.
So we'll go to that. And actually, let's break. Right? It's good.
Okay.
Good time to break. All right, you're listening to Never Off Duty. I gotta ask if you could subscribe and like. Give us that star rating. It'd be great. And we'll be right back. Okay, we are back to Never Off Duty. Appreciate you listening to that 10-second break there. And that's it. Got more for you. Okay, so is there a spooky story you can tell us? Because there might be some that you can't. We understand that.
I've got a couple spooky stories. Now, some of these stories, I mean, they're just like I said. You gotta have some comedy on the job, or you'd lose your mind, really. But I remember being a young deputy up in the north end around Wells Road one time, and I got a call of some suspicious circumstances at the cemetery right behind the mall.
Which is what you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly, right? I'm like, okay, let me go check this out. So, oh man, this is 20-something years ago. I'll admit what happened here. So I drive in this cemetery solo with the spotlight, and I'm like, okay, let's find these suspicious characters in the cemetery and what they're doing. And I come across several people wearing, there's no other way to describe it, they're wearing robes.
Okay.
And they're standing around a grave.
Oh, wow.
And they're just doing I don't know, what looks like some type of ritual.
I was like, it's got to be.
And I'll tell you what, for a second, I was almost like, U-turn, HQ, there's nothing suspicious here, and go about my business. But obviously I couldn't do that. But I was like, I don't want any part of what this is going on. And they all started running. So it was probably kids doing something of
stupid
craziness. But we, another, not kind of spooky, but more funny. Remember one time we had this house we went to, and everyone in this house, there was some missing juveniles that were kind of hanging out at this house. And when we got them all, we're sorting out who they are. One of the girls that I had in custody, she says, I'm a witch. And I said, oh, that's good. That's great. And she goes, you really should probably let me go.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And she goes, well, I'm going to put a spell on you. You can't make this stuff up. And I'm like, you're going to put a spell on me? And she goes, yeah, I'm going to put a shrinking spell on you. And I'm like, I probably need that. Right? So she starts.
Be like, can you focus on this area? Can I give you this?
So she starts doing this chant.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to tell you right now, it got a little spooky, and I'm walking her back to the car, and I've got a couple other deputies with me, and she's doing this chant, and she's doing these words that, aren't English. And I get her to the car, and all of a sudden I let go of her wrist, and I just start making this like little noise, and I start like shrinking my body. I start going, and I start, and the deputies are looking at me, and I got this like blank look on my face, and I start like kind of crouching, like I'm getting smaller, just so spooky but comedy.
Right.
But I mean, it could be a spooky job. I mean, you get these calls. I mean, we're big bad police officers sometimes, but you get these calls of whatever in the woods, and you're walking in the woods at night by yourself looking for something that's not right. Yeah, it can get spooky.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But
so, circle back to your job of what your current job. When you're going through the interview process, is there something that just sticks out that you're like, yes, like like, is there? I know from a person who employs people that often your instincts are wrong. I get that too. Like people can have great resumes. There's a lot to feeling out before you get there. But sometimes there's people that you just are like, wow, they might not even know what job they're, should be doing. And you're like, I can make this person into this.
Oh yeah.
Is there something that sticks out? Because obviously we've talked about some of the skill sets, like the writing and is it just, what do you think when you're interviewing just makes, like, this is going to be somebody who's going to be good at law enforcement?
Yeah, I think it's changed. I think when I first started, it was almost, we didn't do ourselves a service. You kind of looked for that stereotype, what you thought was going to be, an aggressive, physical kind of tough guy or tough girl, so to speak. But now I've realized that it's not that. It's just like anything else. It's that well-rounded. It's that decision maker, someone that can handle that stress, make a decision, someone that can speak well, someone that doesn't get uncomfortable around a bunch of people. A little bit of life experience is always good, or you'll get it real quick, trust me. We talked about the writing. Writing is good. A good listener, someone who's willing to learn. Sometimes we get some of the younger people in these interviews, and they are, I almost want to say they're so nice that you're like, oh man, I hope you know what you're getting into, And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that this job, it can take a toll on you. And you see this person is just so full of like just life and just they want this. And you're like, man, I hope this job doesn't change that person. But yeah, you can see some people come to these interviews and me with my experience, you could say, man, I can see that person doing this, or I can see that person doing this. But just that well-rounded person, not that one. The sheriff actually said it best, and she'd probably be happy I'm going to say this, but she told me this. When I was picking a team for the task force, and we talked about the task force is basically a part of patrol that's designated for proactive, kind of aggressive, go to hot calls, go to serious calls, go find suspicious persons. I was picking the best people for that team, and she said this. She goes, I want you to think about one thing. And I go, what's that? She goes, a baseball team has different players. They're not all pitchers. They're not all home run hitters. You need a team that's a team. Each person has to have a strength. So this person might be, good at narcotics detection and this, but you know what? This person's an excellent writer. They can write the search warrants. They can write this. They can do that. But we want the well-rounded that's kind of good at all those things. Everyone's going to have a strength. Like there's guys I can, tell you that I work with that, we joke about. There's people that they're born to do what they're doing. I mean, there's some people that are born to do traffic. You just, they're good at everything, but man, they're born to do that traffic. There's some people that are born to do narcotics. I mean, they're just good at it. They're just... that's their groove. And then there's people that are just excel in patrol environment. You know what? They don't want to be a detective. And then there's people that you look at and you know what? They are just born to be a detective. They're just great at it. But starting out, that well-rounded person, willing to learn, that's just, and you'll find your groove. And in patrol, you'll kind of find out what interests you and what your strengths are. But as you get more along in your career, you do have to get out of that comfort zone. One, you might find something you actually like even more that you're better at. And if you ever plan on being at a very higher level, you need to experience some things you're not good at just to get the experience. And maybe you don't enjoy doing, but you have to do them. You have to experience it all to be good at the whole, career, so to speak.
So for you personally, if you were not in a leadership position and you were like let's just say at a certain part of your career they're like, yeah, we're not going to do leadership positions anymore, so that wasn't ever an option. What would and now what I love about Clay County Sheriff Office is people can move around, and I think that's really healthy and good, and in a crisis that's great to have the people. They might have had have a different job now, but they can do a different job if needed. But if you were stuck in one and they're like, this is what you're going to, for 15 years, you're going to be stuck in this. This is what you're going to do. What would be that one job at the sheriff's office that you would do?
A non-ranking supervisor job for 15 years. Wow. I would say a field training officer.
Okay.
I really would. I mean, you're talking a non-supervisory role. It would either be, it would be a field training officer. I just think that, first off, you're going to be in that role 15 years. You're going to have some experience that really is unbelievable, and you're going to be able to pass that on to all these younger people coming in. Now, I will say that job can burn you out, a field training officer. I think at one time I did it a total of 7 years. But there's sometimes when you're really hiring and you're kind of shorthanded on them field training officers, like we are kind of now, that you just get one after another. And it could almost be like a Groundhog Day, sometimes you just want to be by yourself in that patrol car, and you want to be able to do your own thing. And that constantly training someone to do that job, it can be taxing on you. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, it can be awesome too, because I think I told you offline one time about Chris Padgett down there at the Green Cove Springs Jail.
Yes.
Remember that call?
Yes.
Want me to share that with
Sure,
you?
yeah, that'd be great.
So when you're a field training officer, not only are you training, but you get to, cops are cops. You're going to play a little bit of jokes. So if Chris Padgett listens to this out west, maybe he'll get a kick out of this. But I had him in training with me, and we were coming down to Green Cove Springs to fuel up or something. And I said, hey, when you're ever down here solo, you need to make sure that you check Green Cove Springs Jail. And he says, Green Cove Springs has a jail? And I said, yeah, they have their own police department. Of course they have a jail. And he's like, man, I thought their prisoners went to the Clay County Jail. And I just kind of look at him. I said, Chris, why would Green Cove Springs Police Department take their prisoners to the Clay County Jail? That's our jail, the Clay County Sheriff's Office Jail. I'm setting them up because for the listeners, yes. Green Cove Springs Jail is basically a museum from, I don't even know what year, the late 1800s and early 1900s, but it looks like a jail still.
It does, yep.
And there is actually a mannequin that they have at the museum of a prisoner hanging from the bars like he's escaping. So I'm doing the full setup on Padgett. So he goes, man, I didn't think about that. So I said, yeah, so just, you got to check this thing because it's so old. Some of the security is lacking and they've got escapes all the time and we're chasing these prisoners, all hours of the night. And he goes, man, he goes, yeah, I'll make sure I check it. So I said, matter of fact, let's go check it right now. So we're walking around the exterior of the building and he's like, man, this is cool. This is an old jail. I said, yeah, it's an old jail. I said, just check all the windows, man. Check all the bars and everything. And I'm setting him up, and he comes around the corner, and he's got his flashlight on the side of this building, and sure enough, he scans up, and he sees that prisoner in the darkness hanging from a window. And if I could show you his face and his actions, I mean, he tapped his radio mic like 15 times in 10 seconds trying to get on the radio, and he was tapping his gun, and thankfully, I caught him before he put anything out on the air, and I let him off the hook. I said, "Chris, this is a museum, and he probably hold that against me for a while, but you got to have fun out there too when you're training these guys, and it's just part of the job."
Oh yeah, no, that is a funny story though, and it is true. I mean, even like if you don't, when you go by that, even during the day, if you don't know it's there is that second where you're like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. That's a pretty. Once you study it, it's not that accurate, but as a glance, it sells the job. So no, I get it.
This guy's a clown. This guy's a chief. He's like a freaking clown on here. They don't see the serious side.
No, but again, we've discussed it. You've got to let it off sometimes. It's y'all have a very stressful job, and you'd have way more PTSD if you didn't let it off. Absolutely. I believe. I am not a medical professional. If you need help, talk to somebody that's not me.
Right. Right.
But I think laughter helps a ton.
Oh yeah, it does. It does.
Well, I've told this story on air, so I'll tell it again. But for you, there is a certain. It's not the Clay County Sheriff's Office, so that narrows it down. When it's night. And when they're patrolling and there's nobody there, because it's a certain area of town where there's literally nobody there at a certain time, they play tag where one of the patrol will go hide their patrol car somewhere in the city. And they probably don't do that anymore. I'm sure they don't. And then the other one you'll try to go find them. And I actually think it's a good exercise because you're trying to find, like it gets you moving. And
I'd say yes. If there's no burglaries at all in your city, it's a good exercise. You get one burglary occurs during that night.
No, that's true. Good. But what I'm saying though is if you go in, if you're taking your patrol car to an area that could have a burglary, and then you're forcing you're basically moving around, and so
I get it. It beats just sitting side by side talking.
Right.
For 10 minutes. Yeah.
So but I caught him doing it because I was like, "What's going on there?" Like because the other police car comes up quickly because I was talking to the one because they found him because they came out. I was doing something at night that they so it turned from. Okay, now I'm gonna. Hey, what's going on here? And then we talked, and then I actually knew the officer, so it was even better. But it was funny that they were.
These times change with deputies too. I remember I was a lieutenant. I was a watch commander in the North End, and deputies get breaks. I mean, let's be honest. You work a 12-hour shift, you're going to get a dinner break. Or You're going to get 15 minutes to grab a cup of coffee or something. But this talks a little bit about the change of how it was when I started to the newer, probably 10 years ago, maybe around 6 or 7 years ago. I remember I was driving. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm driving north on Blanding Boulevard, and I pass a gas station, and I knew that two deputies were there on like a coffee break, so to speak. But I see them with their phones out, and it almost looks like they're chasing somebody. So I said, man, maybe they need some help. So I swing in there, and I'm like, what's going on? And they immediately get that just scared to death look like, nothing, Lieutenant, we're good. I'm like, y'all are on a break, right? Yes, sir, we're on a break. I'm like, well, what are you doing? You look like you're chasing someone. And they were like, well, there's a new Pokemon that got released, and we're trying. I said, what are you talking about? First off, I was like, what are you talking about? And then they had to explain it. They're like, well, it's an imaginary. I said, let me tell you something, Judson. If I could say what I said on the air, oh my God, I went absolutely nuts. I said, you're out here chasing imaginary creatures. I know you're on your break. I mean, you're allowed 10 minutes to kind of. I said, oh man, get in that car and go find a real one. You know what I mean?
Right.
So kind of like your tag story there.
Well, and it's funny because you just never know what they like to do in the past. But I know a very, very important political figure that nobody knows this except for me is a professional gamer on the side. And they they have a day job. They represent us in some capacity. I'm not going to say what because they asked me not to mention it. But they also make a lot of money as a professional gamer.
And Call of Duty and stuff.
Stuff like that. So, but I was just, they're like, yeah, please don't tell anybody because I'm in politics. People might think that's weird, but
it's huge.
It's huge.
Like when we do the introductions of the new deputies, and we're like, tell us a little about yourself and your family and your hobbies. And I'm telling you, it's like 90% of them are like, I'm a gamer.
Yeah.
And I'm just, maybe me and you, we don't get it, but hey, that's your thing. Mine's fishing. Theirs is video gaming. So I'm not
whatever is your thing.
Whatever's your thing is your thing. Yeah.
And I've heard some interesting things with, I do think for military standpoint, I mean, you can attest this because you were in the military. I was not, full disclosure, but I've heard that the hand-eye coordination of some of the younger kids is off the charts because they're just used to their, being able to do things in games, and it makes it very good for drones and things like that.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does.
Okay, so now we'll get back on track here of what I promised everybody. All right, we got two things for sure we're going to do. We'll talk a little fishing.
Okay.
And first, though, tips. Let's go with some tips.
Some tips for people that are around law enforcement.
I think let's tell this is your law-abiding people, so it's probably the people doing, you're because you're in, you're assistant chief of patrol, but you've done patrol.
I think let's talk about one thing I deal with a lot is it ain't really a tip, but like, why are they doing that? Sometimes we get a lot of complaints about that deputy is speeding. And when I say speeding, like even 10, 12 miles over the speed limit, or there's two deputies speeding and they're racing on the highway. And we're like, we look into it, obviously. We look into every complaint. But a lot of people just think that every time we're going to a call, that those lights and sirens are going to be on.
Right.
And that's not the case. I mean, there's a lot of serious calls that really we need to get to, but it's still in policy doesn't allow for the use of lights and sirens. Let's say like a missing person or something that's we really do need to get to because it has a potential to go bad. So we're going to step it up, so to speak, a little bit, and there's theories. There's some people that are probably going to write you and say they're not above the law and no, they shouldn't do that. They need to have their lights and sirens on, but there's some things we really do need to get to. And we could probably turn our lights and sirens on, but they don't.
Well, I think that from a me standpoint, sometimes that switching on really quickly actually kind of causes. It's good when it's from a distance, but when it comes up on you like that, it causes you to have that moment of maybe you swerve, maybe you do something. So I could see that if you don't need to, why do it?
Yeah,
it's
exactly
because a person can pass a person fast without
right. So that's one of the things that a lot of people are like, why are they doing that? Why are they? But yeah, they're going to a call most of the time.
Now, do you, like Deputy Ford, who will listen to this and now give me some heat about this? No, he brought it up. But you're in your patrol car, so they know it's a patrol car or whatever. Let's be honest, a lot of unmarked, quote unquote, unmarked police cars. Policey. Yeah.
Like mine out there in your driveway.
Yeah, I know. So you just assume. But so you might be in the left lane. This is a tip for drivers. You're in the left lane. Okay. Maybe you're about to pass somebody. So you're just doing 5 over the speed limit. Up comes the deputy behind you. Your instincts are slow down to the speed limit. Now you've created a. No. Would you rather them just go ahead and pass? Just please.
Please do what you're doing. And I'll tell you another reason we're going 5-6 miles over the speed limit sometimes is because the impeding of traffic, because that person will not pass you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sometimes you're on I-95 or on I-10 and you just see this hundreds of cars and there's this police officer at the front like doing 2 miles under the speed limit.
Yes.
It looks like a pit car for
It's
Daytona
true.
500.
It's so true.
And as soon as he gets off that exit, it's like
it clears up.
So, quick story.
Okay.
So I'm a sergeant and I'm coming over the Doctors Lake Bridge and I encounter that. I encounter just massive traffic jams. And I'm like, what is going on? I weave my way through and I see there's a deputy at the front middle lane and his lights are going. His police lights are going and everyone is stacked behind him kind of like a pit car in NASCAR. And I finally get up alongside of him and I see this deputy look over at me and he's sipping on a milkshake like he's having the most relaxed day of his life. And I'm like, I roll the window down and he's like, Sarge. I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, just enjoying a milkshake. I said, your freaking lights are on. He's like, oh my God. Turns the lights on and then everyone just starts doing their thing. There's no siren. There's nothing in the car that flashes. And sometimes we're human. Sometimes you forget them freaking lights are on, but everyone's obeying your traffic. So yeah, sometimes just get out of the way is a good tip if you can safely. Traffic stops.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What do you prefer? Let me tell you what I do, and then you correct me.
Yep.
This is what my dad taught me, so it's his fault. It's like if you ever get pulled over, he said you should put your keys on the dash and put your hands on up where they can see them and wait.
It's a little extreme.
I think the keys get stopped in Florida heat, and that's really dumb.
Yeah, that's a little extreme. I would say the hands thing is always a great idea. So even now, I'll get pulled over. I think I've been pulled over maybe twice in the past, like maybe 10, 15 years. But
I'm glad you didn't say like in the past, 10 months.
No. So here's what I'd say.
Okay.
You see the blue lights behind you. The first thing I'll say to you is, first off, the normal person, it causes stress. Mm-hmm. It causes a little bit of panic. It's like the, oh my God factor. And I would say avoid any excess movements. That's not the time to start, where's my registration? Where's my license? So that's the first tip. Don't start the whole, I got to start digging through the car. Because from my standpoint, Now, what I'm thinking is you're trying to get a weapon, trying to hide a weapon, try to hide some kind of illegal substance, or you're nervous. So what I would say, you see the blue lights, first thing you need to do is find a safe place to pull over. If there's no safe place to pull over, or you're uncomfortable, maybe you're a female, it's the middle of the night, slow down to a little bit below the speed limit, turn your flashers on. You could even roll your window down and kind of signal that you know he's there and you're going to pull over.
That's a good tip. I mean, because I've thought about it for my wife, but I wasn't like, makes so sense.
Wait till
the
a
flashers
well-lit parking lot or something. I'm not saying 5-10 miles, but when you can safely do so. So no crazy overt movements. Nice pull over to the side, put the vehicle in park. I would say no keys out of the ignition. That's a little unreasonable. Leave the AC going. Leave the vehicle running. But I love hands on the steering wheel. I kind of like you rest your palms on the top of that steering wheel where they can see all the fingers. And I'm not talking about hands on the glass or nothing extreme like that. But just, both of your hands where they're visible. And that's going to, right off the bat, it's going to put that officer or deputy a little bit more at ease. And they're going to approach you and they're going to introduce themselves like we talked about. And then the next tip at that point, if you are carrying, I would say the first thing is after that introduction, he's probably going to ask you for your license, your registration, your insurance card. That's the point where your hands are still up there. You say, I'm going to grab that for you, officer or deputy, but I do want to let you know that I have a weapon in the vehicle. I have a weapon upon my person. So before I do anything, I wanted you to know that. Man, right off the bat, that's going to be good for us and good for you.
So what I used to do, and now the laws changed in Florida, so I still have my concealed weapons permit. So that's a better way to do it. What I used to do was when they'd ask for my driver's license, I'd hand that and my concealed weapons at the same time, figuring, I don't want to be like, I have a weapon, and that was in my head.
Lead to, are you armed at this
right,
moment? So
exactly.
Just tell him right now.
Just tell him from the start.
When he does his introduction, which goes back to my thing, there's no need to grab that registration and all that stuff before he even encounters you. Wait to see if he even wants it.
Right.
And when he asks for that stuff, that's when you say, you know what, I am a concealed weapons permit carrier and I am armed at this time. So before I grab anything, I wanted you to know that. Most of the time, they're going to say, thank you for letting me know that. Just grab your license, just leave your weapon where it's at, and you're good to go. So another thing is... just be upfront. I mean, just, sometimes they come up with the craziest stories you've ever heard. Just, wasn't paying attention. I apologize.
If you're sick, because I've got that once where I was like, I got a stomach virus and I was going to throw up. I mean, it was going to happen. I was going faster than I should, but I wanted to get home. And I thought about that. I'm like, I was like, if I get pulled over, should I just be like, I'm probably going to throw up? Can I get out of the car? What would be I know that doesn't happen often, but it's happened twice in my life. So it's enough that it's.
Yeah, I think you would just be, I think you should say, like, deputy, I understand why you're stopping me. And I'm not trying to be difficult or anything, but I am sick right now. And I do feel like I'm going to be sick. And they're going to probably get you some help. Of course, they're going to get you some help if you need it.
Well, I kind of thought of too with, I'm sure y'all have had to deal with this with COVID. Because Green Cove has a testing where you can see a doctor now if you have any COVID symptoms, you have to get tested first. So I had to get tested, and I was like, same thing. I'm like, what do I do if I get pulled over? They're like, no, I can't roll down the windows.
That happened to me, and I was so upset. Like I said, I don't pull people over,
right?
And I mean, this person was driving like just out of control, right by St. Vincent's and Brandonfield in our county, and to the point where I've got to pull this person over. So very nervous, no mask. This is in the heart of COVID. And I walk up there and I'm like, what are you doing? Like we talked about before. And I'm sorry, I know I was speeding. Do you have your license on you? And she's grabbing everything. No word out of her mouth about nothing. She's grabbing everything. She's handing me. I'm fumbling through license and everything else and talking to her 3 feet away. And then when we get to the part about why are you driving like that? I'm trying to get to the hospital right here. I have full blown COVID. And I'm just like looking at this person like, like they're pointing a 45 caliber at me, I'm like, are you serious? You couldn't start with that? And then it's the whole, here's your stuff, and going back to the car. And I mean, I put Purell stock through the roof that day. I'm dousing in a Purell.
I can just see somebody roll out. I got COVID. Don't approach me.
But you know what? A lot of them use that too. I hate to say that a lot of them that weren't doing what they were supposed to use that as well.
Which is why you still got to do your job, and that's what makes it tough.
Still got to do it.
So, all right. So we got through that. You basically be cool, and communicate. And follow instructions. And unless you're doing something bad, that's your best chance of having a positive outcome.
Another good tip is a lot of the younger people I notice immediately go for the phone.
Oh.
And call parents.
Yes.
And call this and call that. And then when we're trying to do what we're trying to do, they're giving us the signal, hold on, I'm on the phone with my dad type of thing. And can you talk to my dad? And I get that. They're so nervous. They're so stressed out. It's just, it's not the time for that. Just like I said, just no crazy movements. Just wait to hear what we even want and our instructions. And then, you know what? After the traffic stop, I've called numerous parents. Sometimes because they needed to know what the kids were doing, and sometimes because they were upset, they got stopped and stressed out, and hey, we pulled your kid over. We want to let you know. Trying to ease things. Or you want me to talk to your parents or stuff, or explain the options if they did get a citation. But that's some tips on traffic stops.
Oh, great! All right, so we're at the 30-minute mark. So now we're gonna talk fishing.
Nice.
So I guess the question is, since the last time, has there been any cool fishing stories, anything? First of all, let's tell people where they can watch or listen, and I'll put it in the show notes too, so that, you're not sitting there at the hour mark going, oh, finally, you gave me the plug.
That's not why I'm here.
No, but I think it's great. So,
So I have as we know, I'm a boat and kayak fisherman, and I have a YouTube, Instagram, all the social medias, and it's True Lovin' Fishing, but it's spelled TRULUVIN.
Which I misspelled but corrected. Awesome. Before it went live, when I was doing it, I'm like, I misspelled it a couple of times.
I try to do weekly content on fishing. I've had a blessed year. I've had 4 sponsors, so to speak, in the last year that have followed the channel or have reached out to me, and it's been just a blessed year for me on the fishing front. Really.
What do you, so if you listen, you should subscribe. I want to say, if you have any interest at all, it's always good to subscribe to somebody. One, if you're interested in it, will help your algorithm on their end, but it really helps them on their end. I want to be clear, like it's, especially with YouTube, it's tough. Yeah. It really helps those subscriptions. And it doesn't really mess up your end. So if you just want to be nice, you should do it too.
People get a little when you're like, man, subscribe to my channel. They get overwhelmed. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, am I going to get bombarded with this stuff? Does it cost money? And they don't realize it's as simple as you put your email in and you hit a button.
Right. And if you're already logged in, it does it automatically.
Exactly.
And you can set it to private. People don't even know what you're subscribed to. Just FYI.
But I do cool things. Like I said, I don't just do one thing. I do kayak or boat. I incorporate a drone. Now, sometimes that's comedy. You want to see someone flying a drone from a kayak and landing it in the wind. I mean,
what kind of drone do you use?
I use a DJI Mini 3
okay.
Pro. And
I just got the
Mavic.
The first person view one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that is intense. It's fun. But it makes me want to get my license.
Yeah. I need to do a blooper reel because sometimes I'm trying to land that thing on a kayak. It's windy. The kayak's rocking. Well, if people that know drones that are out there know that those drones have obstacle avoidance. So I'm trying to land that thing and hand catch it, and I'm lifting my hand up, and it's sensing my hand and flying back up in the air. And I'm playing this game where I'm trying to trick it, and oh my goodness. Sometimes it's a 15-minute landing process, but it's what it takes.
How does that affect the fishing, though? Is it pretty much once they hear that, they're done for that area, or do
the drone affect the fish?
Yeah, do they...
No, not at all. I usually fly it at a level that wouldn't affect it. And then when I'm landing it, obviously.
Do you just put it on like follow mode so that you can...
I do.
That's kind of cool.
I'll track myself, and you try to get lucky when it's up there and get that actual catch on.
Oh, wow. That would be awesome.
I've been able to do that a couple times. This is all new to me, though. I'm not... I started this a year ago, and it's really... it's blown up, and it's new. All the editing and stuff that I've had to learn because I edit all my own videos and put the music into them, and it's work. It's turning into work.
It is. So fun behind the scenes fact, Sheriff Cook had said at the beginning, like, hey, can we do video of this? And I'm like, I don't have time to edit that.
Yeah.
Sound is easier, but when you start adding that extra element of video and sound, that's I mean, we could do it. And okay, I tell you what, we get up to 5,000 average subscribers, I'll do it. Put a number there. We'll implement it because it could be done. It's just a lot of extra work that has to be done for that. So,
but the fishing is it's good. The thing about it is when you start doing these channels and social media and photos and videoing and drones, it does take from the fishing.
Right.
So I don't want it to ever turn into a job, so to speak. And now my out is kind of, it's all being that, because it does take time, like I said, from the fishing, and my quality and quantity of fish has gone down since I've done this. And I'm like, everything's going great except for the fish. You know what I mean? But I still have my days, good days.
Now, do you do any of the tournaments locally?
I do.
Do you do the one in Palatka, the big bass tournament? Is that something?
I'm a saltwater guy.
Okay, that's right. I remember that.
I'm a saltwater inshore fisherman. So now I'll bass fish with some of the guys, but it's just not my thing. I'm a saltwater inshore guy.
And is there a reason? Is it just you?
Yeah, of course. Your viewers or your listeners will disagree, but to me, it's way more exciting. It's, bass fishing is exciting, but there's something about, to me, knowing what you're going to catch, and pretty much it kind of feels the same to me every time. Where in that saltwater, there's so many species, there's so many different things I could catch, and once again, they're going to beat you up and beat me up on this, but I just think the fight is way better. I think them saltwater fish are better fighters, and the table fare, if you do choose to eat, I keep very few fish now.
I don't like freshwater over salt. I'd eat a saltwater fish. And I hate saying people aren't going to like this, but I've eaten a ton of brim in my, fish fry.
Specs are good.
Whatever they are.
Saltwater fish takes the cake. So I do, back to the tournament thing, the way the tournament world is now, there are still like tournaments that you show up to and you have your launch and your weigh-in at the end of the day. I do those, but those are very few and far between now. The way tournaments are going now is online, which is really cool. So the way tournaments, you kind of sign up for a tournament, and let's say it was starting on June 1st. So these tournaments are usually running anywhere from 1 day to up to a month. And at midnight on the day the tournament starts, they release what's called an identifier. So you catch what you're going for, and that has to be photoed with that identifier in the photo.
Oh, okay.
And there's a bunch of rules on how it needs to be photoed and measured on an official board. And then that gets uploaded to a site that's basically, then the picture's viewed for, making sure everything's within the rules. And then it gets kind of certified, and that fish is on the board.
That is really cool.
It's a cool way to do it. And a shout out to the undersheriff, Ron Lenve. Man, he is a beast with those online tournaments. He just came in first in the trout division in the Fins tournament, which was a month and a half. I was in that. I came in. I think 6th or 7th.
Can you film a tournament, or is that not allowed? Is that
you can film one?
Okay,
but you're
trying to win it.
You're trying to win it. Yeah. So he came in first in that, and I think I came in 7th, as I said. But it's a cool way to do it. Now there's advantages. The advantage of a tournament that you show up and they launch at the same time and you weigh at the same time is truly everyone has the same chances. But in an online tournament, if you got a full-time job and you're fishing on the weekends, but I'm retired, I can fish every day. That's an advantage to me, obviously. So, but it's fun. It just puts that, more fun into what you're doing. It's cool.
All right. 2 questions. Cause before we go, number 1 is, what have you recently, recently caught that you were like, whoa, wasn't expecting to catch this on anything like that? Or go back to the last time that was where you're like, wow, didn't think I was going to, you're out there for one type of fish and then I know saltwater is different, but you were just kind of shocked to.
We caught a shark pretty recently. Me and my girlfriend went out just for like a day of relaxing, but I had to sneak a pole in, of course. And we went out there and caught a pretty decent, 3-4 foot shark, and those are always fun. But I knew it. When you fish enough, you know by the pull of that line or what's going on. You're like, I said it was two things. I said it was either a big Jack Crevalle or it's a shark, and it was a shark. And then comes the landing of that and getting the hook out of its mouth, and it's on the deck, and I did the little Jaws theme. It's trying to bite you, and you got to release it. So those are always good. That's the thing about salt water. You can be fishing for anything. I'll tell you a Crystal River one. I was in a redfish tournament in Crystal River probably 2 months ago. And if people don't know Crystal River, it's obviously spring fed that leads out to the Gulf. And my first bite of the day is a pretty good bite. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're in it. It's a redfish tournament. And I reel in a largemouth bass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in a saltwater redfish tournament. So that's cool. And that's cool.
Could you feel it, though? Did you kind of know, like, this doesn't feel right?
It felt different. I knew it wasn't a redfish, but it still had a good fight to it. I think it was about a 4-pounder. It's a largemouth, cool. So it was pretty cool. You're in the saltwater redfish tournament, and you catch a largemouth bass. So that's pretty cool.
All right, so last thing. If somebody listening is now like, I want to try fishing. So what would you tell them to do to get started? Where would you tell them to get started at? What should they do? What are the kind of the tips for the beginner?
I tell them to go to True Love and Fish and watch some videos.
But okay, so they watch the videos and they need to get,
I would say,
where should they start? Fresh, salt, dock? What would be the best to get them hooked? No pun intended.
I think everyone in fishing, first off, my number one thing is just don't invest a bunch of money on something that may not be for you. You buy a lot of the wrong things. I see that a lot in the kayak world too. There's so many accessories and there's so many of these things that you're buying. And then once you really get into it, you're like, I don't need that. I need this and need this. So the first thing I'd say, honestly, is just get a guide. I'd say if you're like thinking about, do I want to get into kayak fishing? Go get a guide. Go experience it, because it is a learning curve. It's different being 6-8 inches from that water, and there's a little bit of physicality to it. You might be pedaling, you might be paddling. It's different leverages. It's not like fishing from a boat. And see if it's for you. Don't go buy, these kayaks range from $700 to $6,000.
Yes.
So don't invest all that money, plus then all your gear and your fishing gear, and then you're like three months into it, you're like, man, this isn't for me. Same thing for boating. Get a charter. Go on a couple charters and see if it's something you like. I think like every fisherman or me, it started with surf fishing, just like everyone else. Going to the beach, putting a chair, putting a rod in a rod holder with, live or artificial bait, and just loving that, and then progressing from there to fishing with your buddies, and then realizing the passion it is, and then just moving up through it. So learn all you can. I'd say a lot of things are just the line you're using and the bait you're using, and there's a lot of people out there that are still fishing with they're like, I never catch anything, but they're using like those pre-rigged wire kind of like rigs with the little orange balls coming off them and the little hooks. None of that works except for catfish and sharks, and occasionally you're going to get lucky. But my number one tip to probably new fishermen is research fluorocarbon leader. Leader that attaches to a main line that, has been proven that fish don't see that. And then the smallest possible tackle to catch the biggest fish. Don't overdo it. Always underdo it.
Okay. Now, do you on your YouTube video site, and I will, between now and next time I see you, I'll subscribe just to help you out. Because I kind of like, it's weird because I've like I said, I've done dock fishing mostly my whole life, but but now I'm like, yeah, maybe I should expand my horizons. Do you do a lot of engagement on your YouTube? Like, do people ask questions, and can they shoot you a question? Would that be a best place?
They actually, they do a lot of questions, and fishermen are very secretive about.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yes,
but I'm probably I'm too generous with some of that. But on every video, I'm like soliciting questions. That's what I love. I think it goes back to law enforcement,
and that training,
servant, that wanting to help people. And sometimes I probably should keep some of these things to myself. But with our local Hagen Coastal Outfitters is one of my sponsor, so to speak. I'm a staff member there. And I put in all my videos. If you want to learn kayak fishing or you don't know what you need, I'll drive down there and meet you free of cost. And,
that's awesome.
I'll walk you through the whole process of you don't need that. You don't need that. This is what you need. If this is the type of fishing you're doing, this is what you need. You don't need that. And I love that stuff. You know, when I told you, I think I took a 17-year-old contacted me. His father,
wow. No, I didn't.
His father works for us. He's part of the agency. And I didn't know his son. His son told his dad that for my birthday, I want to go fishing with Domenic.
Oh, that is awesome.
I never met the kid. So he contacted me and he's like, can I go fishing with you for my birthday? So I called his dad, of course, because he's 17. I said, are you good with this? He goes, oh, yeah, he's been doing it. He's pretty good. He's got a kayak. He's got all this stuff. He's been watching all your videos. And I was like, man, this is cool. Well, it was the heart of winter. But people don't know here in Florida that is the great time to fish. I mean, the fish get fired up. So he contacts me and I tell him, yeah, we'll do it for your birthday. I said, meet me on Heckscher Drive at 6:30 in the morning. I give him the spot. And I pull up there, it's 39 degrees. 39. I got full bibs on, full boots. I mean, I'm ready to fish, full gear. And I look over at this kid in the parking lot, and I'm like, that's got to be him. He looks exactly like his dad. And he's standing there in gym shorts and a hoodie. I'm like, oh, my God, this guy's going to be
That's the most teenage thing to do.
Most teenage thing to do. Let me tell you what, he got out on the water on the most basic equipment. But it doesn't matter. He had a passion for it. He got out there on that equipment, and he said to me, I've never caught a slot redfish. And I have felt that fire inside, like I've got to get this kid a slot redfish. And he was fishing. He outfished me that day. It's on video. I'm like, he's out here making me look bad. But you know what? He got a slot redfish. I saw the fight. He fought it for 3-4 minutes. He didn't have a net. I told his dad on video, get the kid a freaking net. So I went over there with my net. We scooped it up. We got great photos. That is the stuff I love. I think I'm to a point now in my fishing where I love watching those other people catch the fish.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Great.
Well, we're going to call it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to let's plug your YouTube channel one last time.
True Lovin' Fishing.
And if you have a Clay County Sheriff's Office question, sheriff@claysheriff.com, and put podcast in the title. It makes it easier because they get a lot of emails, but they welcome your questions on other related things too. But podcast would be easier to do that. I mean, I guess they could put fishing, but they should reach out to you directly. That'd be hilarious. Suddenly y'all start getting forwarded emails for fishing.
Yeah. I'll be looking for a job.
Well, thank y'all for listening, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to Never Off Duty.